What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a video talking about AEW. Now, I don't like coming on here, or realistically any of my channels, and talking kind of negatively about the thing that I make these channels for. Obviously, with this one here I'm talking about wrestling, but I also have one where I talk about, movies and comics and stuff. Jake Talks Capes, go subscribe. And I have one where I talk about music. Jake Talks Capes, go subscribe. And I don't like coming onto the internet and being reactionary and being negative and being down on these things that I love. If I didn't love these things, I wouldn't make these videos on these channels. However, a few months ago, I came on here after Wrestle Dream and I said that this new era of AEW could be the best one yet. We're coming into the end of the year, we're coming into the Continental Classic. Jon Moxley is the champ, the Death Riders with this story where they're saying everyone has to step up. We're doing this for the betterment of AEW. We're here to put the competition back on notice. We're here to put the fire back in the hearts of everyone in AEW. We're here, and what we're doing is here to make this company better. We're now in January, and two things have happened. One, the main focus of this story, the man who was going to dethrone Moxley, the man who put his championship shot up against Moxley for Mox to go on and kill Bryan Danielson and hold this title hostage. Darby Allin, the main character of all this, the one that we're building to dethrone Moxley, is going to be off TV for at least the next 6 months as he takes time to prepare to climb Mount Everest, which he was supposed to do last year, couldn't due to injury. And the other thing that's happened is the Death Rider story has, for the most part, absolutely stunk. Now, when Mox gets in the ring and that bell goes, there is still no denying that Mox is one of the best on earth. However, what they are doing week to week and how we are getting match to match has been absolutely mishandled at every single level, and to be completely honest, it is absolutely total dog shit. Just last night, as I record this video, Tony Khan announced a 12-man tag, which sees the Death Riders teaming with the fucking Learning Tree to take on, it's Rated FTR and who is it? Let's go find out. Team to take on Rated FTR, the Outrunners, and the number one contender for Moxley's AEW World Championship, Big Will Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs. Now, there's a couple of things you've got to unpack here. First of all, let's unpack the 12-man tag. Let's unpack that first of all before we talk about the kind of larger issue with Darby Allin. Throughout the history of AEW, since its inception, Jon Moxley has hated Chris Jericho. Jon Moxley has had prolonged feuds with Jericho, with the Inner Circle, with the Jericho Appreciation Society. As a member of factions on his own, Jon Moxley has never been okay with Jericho throughout the history of AEW. But because Tony Khan seems to still see some value in Jericho even after what happened with Dax there this week, and also everything he's done for the past year, they're now in this 12-man tag because multi-man match heels faces. It is all the Vince McMahon shit that we all hated. You're a good guys in a story, you're bad guys in the same stories. Let's have a match on TV for the sake of having a match on TV. And this does nothing to help nobody, but it especially doesn't help the Death Riders. If the mission statement of the Death Riders is to make AEW better, if the mission statement of the Death Riders is that iron sharpens iron and we need to toughen this place back up and we need to bring everything back and we need to go after everyone to make sure everyone is operating at their best, why would they then go for something that, an angle in a story and a character that really kind of flies in the face of the original spirit of AEW in what Jericho is doing right now? And I'm not one of those reactionary revisionists that wants to go on here and say that, oh, Jericho should never have been the first AEW champion, because he absolutely should have. He was the biggest name in the company. They wanted to get more eyes on that product. You put Chris Jericho on TV every week and you have him as the champion or Le Champion. He was doing some amazing work then. He was having some incredible matches back then. I'm not going to come on here and pretend that early AEW Jericho was bad. And even through to the beginnings of the Jericho Appreciation Society, there was still a lot of good stuff going on. But now we are in 2025, the guy's fucked, he can't move, nothing he does lands, and instead of changing the direction, they're leaning into it, but not in a way that makes it endearing, in a way that actually just makes it more grating and more annoying. He's the Ring of Honor champion, he can't even he can't even grab a title on time for a planned spot with Dax to fucking do effective heel work. He is just dog shit and a detriment to every story that he's in. And it's a testament to the talents of Big Bill and Brian Keith that I still actively care about them on TV. Because they are linked to this anchor. They are tied to this anchor that is pulling everything down, and it's pulling the general quality of AEW and Ring of Honor down, having this act featured so prominently. So, when a gimmick in an act is doing so much damage to AEW, why the fuck would Moxley want to team with him? Why would Moxley want to be associated with anyone that's not in the Death Riders? It doesn't make sense. Nothing that Tony Khan is doing with Moxley makes sense, and I understand that Moxley had a lot of creative freedom with what he's done with the Death Riders, and it's all kind of honked, and I'm not trying to say that all the blame should lie at Tony Khan's feet, but booking this match doesn't make sense. It doesn't. The bigger issue at play here, though, is the fact that Darby Allin is going to be off TV for months, because at the end of the day, what do we do? Now, you might think the answer is very obvious. You put that world title on Kenny Omega. He came back at the Dome, had what is, in my opinion, probably his best Tokyo Dome match. I don't think it's his best match ever. I think it's his third best match ever, though. I think him and Gabe Kidd put on a hell of a show, and I understand that may be a very unpopular opinion. The Omega Dome matches, let's just think of the best ones off the top of my head. So you've got Okada, you've got Jericho, you've got Tanahashi, you've got Ospreay. Just fucking incredible matches. However, the Gabe Kidd match for me ticked all the boxes. It's probably my third favourite Kenny Omega match of all time, and definitely in my top 10 matches of all time, with the other two, in case you're wondering. Number 1 is Omega Okada 4, number 2 is Hangmaker versus Bucks, obviously. But you might be thinking, it's fairly obvious, you just put that title on Omega and you just let him cook. We just have hoops on hoops on hoops on hoops on hoops, course correct as we go. But they are very clearly eyeing up Omega and Okada for All in Texas for the Continental Championship. And that's fine. That's completely fine. We can do that. We can have that match. But why not just have it for both? They did something very similar last year with Bryan Danielson and Okada when they wrestled for both championships on Dynamite. And it's very, very clever the way they worked this, because the World Championship was contested in 60-minute time limit matches, whereas the Continental Championship was contested in 30-minute time limit matches. So, if Danielson or Okada can't put the other away in under 30 minutes, that means when we hit minute 30 and we go into the back half of the match, that means that Okada has retained the Continental Championship. And then it gives a sense of urgency to the start of the match because 2 championships are on the line. And then also it just means that in the back half, that if we don't want to put both championships on one guy, then we don't need to. But if obviously you've been giving Okada all these wins as Continental Champion, it begs the question, why would he not be going after Danielson or Moxley or, in my dream world, Omega? We can absolutely do a double title match in the main event of All in Texas and have it go 49 minutes, and then at the end of the show, both men still have their titles, and we've had the Omega Okada banger we've been waiting for since Okada came to AEW. But in order to do that, AEW must pivot. The Death Rider story is not working. And that is not to say that these athletes and performers and competitors aren't incredible in the ring. Every single member of the Death Riders is brilliant. But everything the Death Riders has touched from a storyline perspective is tarnished in a way. Wheeler Yuta was doing some of the best and most complex and layered character work, and now he's just a pin guy. From the moment that his dad's beat up his other dad to then he joined them, he's not really shown any sort of real character moments. He's just their pin guy. And they've not defended the Trios Championship since November. And if their mission statement is that we want to fix AEW by forging a better attitude and forged in combat, was the Blackpool Combat Club's stuff said, essentially bringing that motto over into a new group, saying that we want to toughen everyone up and we want to raise the stock of everything. That doesn't make sense if you're not defending your championships. And the fact that one of the nicest looking championships in professional wrestling is being carried around in a bag, and I get it, and I would forgive it if the story was good and what was happening on TV was good and interesting, but it's just simply not. And to be completely honest with you, what has happened with Darby Allin has almost completely, entirely squashed my want to ever see him hold that championship. If Darby feels he needs to scratch his ego that much by proving he's the Daredevil, by proving that he doesn't fear death and doing all this and climbing Mount Everest, fair enough. If he wants to do that, fair enough. But if he can't put that off to hold the world championship of the company that he's in, if he can't put that off to hold the company's top championship, I do not think he should be holding that championship ever. If he wants to do his thing where he says, "Oh, well, look at me, I've done all this crazy stuff. I got hit by a car and wrestled like fucking 3 weeks later," or whatever the fuck he does, fair enough. But at the end of the day, taking this break now, when he is poised to win the World Championship and be the World Champion, probably be the World Champion heading into a stadium show in the summer and going, "Nah, I want to climb the big mountain," has completely squashed any desire I had in my heart to see Darby with that championship. And to be completely honest, out of all the sort of possible outcomes for the guys that at the end of Death Riders were, everyone kind of looked at and who's the next guy that's going to step up. There was that shot of Hook and Darby and Orange Cassidy and Daniel Garcia. To be completely honest, the two people that I really want to see hold that championship the most was Hook and Danny Garcia. I even said in my last video that my big prediction for this year is that I think Danny Garcia is going to hold the World Championship by the end of 2025. I don't know if he's necessarily going to go into 2026 as the World Champion, but I truly see a world where he holds Big Platinum this year. My interest was never really in Darby, but Darby has been around AEW since the beginning. Darby is an AEW original. Obviously had the run with Sting. He's had so many iconic moments in AEW, it makes sense. But if he can't put off climbing Everest to hold the company's World Championship, then he shouldn't be champion. I've not been one of those people that's been saying that AEW needs a major course correction, because I think most of my complaints with AEW in the last sort of year has just been, I think TV needs tightened up. Obviously, there are questionable decisions. You're always going to get stuff like that. Not every booker can get it right every single time. But I think at the end of the day, one of their biggest issues is to really bring back the feeling of the best times in AEW. You just need to tighten up the TV. You need to be willing to pay feuds off on TV. You need to be giving people a reason to be watching TV, which I don't think they've done a lot of. Now, they still do the thing that AEW does best, and one of the things that I've said, I think Raw really missed last week, which is just a match for the sake of a match, just an absolute banger that you're going to put on, and you're going to have a banger like, I don't know, was it Mark Briscoe and Lashley this week? I've still not watched Dynamite from this week because I've just been busy, and it's now Monday, so I'm 5 days late on Dynamite, but that's a whole other story. But for the most part recently, I have been, very stand up for AEW in the sense of I don't think a major course correction has been needed, because these stories all of the stories and the issues I have all sort of felt like they had a natural expiration date, and unless anything majorly changed or Tony Khan decided to extend them for whatever reason, then fair enough, then we can look at a big sort of abandon all ships, hope is lost sort of panic moment. However, now with this news, a major shift is needed. If we're losing Darby Allin for the next 6 months, then fuck him. If we are losing Darby Allin for the next 6 months, then absolutely and under no circumstances should we be waiting till he comes back in July to then give him another rise to get a shot at Moxley. There is absolutely no fucking chance we should be waiting for him to get back down from Everest just to continue this story that isn't working. The entire main event landscape in AEW needs to change, and when I thought this change was coming in the next couple of months, I could deal with it. But the prospect and the possibility of this being dragged out for months and months and months can't fucking go. To be completely honest with you, they should be eyeing up Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley for Revolution, and I do not care what the story is. I do not care that Kenny's only just come back. Put him on TV every single week until then if you need to get his wins up enough to make it seem believable that he's coming after Moxley, even though he shouldn't need to win matches to go after the World Championship, because he's Kenny by God Omega. If Darby Allin's going to be off TV until after the halfway point of the year, then let's move on. Moxley should not be carrying this belt past Revolution. And that's not a slight on Moxley. He is one of my favourite wrestlers in the world, and between the ropes he is always delivering, but a major character reset is needed, and we need time away to make us forget what's happened with this. Tony Khan, if for whatever reason you're watching my silly little video, hit the reset button, put that title on Omega, and if you still want to run him versus Okada for the Continental Championship, fucking do them both. Do both of those titles at All In Texas. So, that's it for now for me today. A little bit more negative than I would like to be. I feel like I very rarely come on here and talk negatively about pro wrestling. I try not to, because I love it enough to make silly little YouTube videos about it. But that's just my thoughts. I feel we're at a point now with Omega back on TV. We can't be fucking about, especially after he came back, had one match and has proven that he's as good as ever. We cannot be fucking about with Kenny Omega. do it. Just pull the trigger right the fuck now. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think down below. If you don't think it should be Omega, let me know. If you think maybe it should wait for Darby, then you're incorrect. Who would you like to see go after? What would you do as well? What do you think are the other areas that AEW really need to tighten up on? Because I think, to be completely honest with you, apart from obviously the Jericho stuff, which just isn't good, and the Death Rider stuff, which is a lot of wasted potential, I feel like most of the stories going on in AEW right now are good, and there's not a lot I have a major issue with apart from that. I just think maybe give Cope a go at the belt, but not at Revolution, and Kenny Omega at Revolution. So like I say, one more time, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.